Wait.
You go live all the time.
Right. Let's.
Hey.
Hey. That's better. That's better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So
yeah, I've got my headphones in now, so maybe that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, and as I said when we spoke earlier, they've never been needed before. But anyway,
never mind.
Here we go. So we'll start over again. I'm Tom from Given to Live. This is Dan Mumford.
Hey.
And I'll say again, thank you so much for your support over the years and for being here. Yeah,
yeah, no problem at all.
Just for being here.
Yeah,
and,
no problem at all.
And we had a little pre-chat, and one thing that I had no idea about you were in metal bands once upon a time.
Yeah. Yeah, I was. I was in 3 or 4 when I was between the ages of probably 14 to, well, sort of now, but not as active. I'm very vaguely in a band now that plays maybe once every 5 years. So, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do the posters for your own band once every 5 years?
Yes.
Very limited edition then.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them. Actually, we were meant to play a show in April, just gone, and of course that got cancelled. And I was going to do the poster for that show as well, and also like play live for the first time in about 5 years, and it got cancelled. So that was a real bummer. But I think it's gonna probably be rescheduled, hopefully for later in the year. But I don't know. No one really knows yet, right?
Yeah. And that is the big thing. It's like, how long does everything go on? How long can things stay like this before it has to reappear as some? I'm not a big fan of using the word normal, but at some point it's got to come back to something that we knew before.
Yeah, I think you'll probably start to see that towards the start of next year. I don't think I think this year's just gonna be a whole mystery sort of adventure where we find out what happens with stuff. But next year, I think for a lot of people are thinking it could be a bit brighter, hopefully. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it has to be. It has to be.
Your picture's just gone now.
Yeah. And I have no idea why or how.
Oh man.
I'm baffled on that. It's just gone. But I mean, you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh well, we'll carry on, and maybe it's just a bit of a technological glitch. So your band then took you into work. That we know you of.
Yeah, I went into doing like band album covers and a few posters occasionally, but that was the sort of thing I did to start out in my career. And that was sort of the early 2010s, something like that. And then that evolved into sort of doing more pop culture stuff a bit later on.
And your first albums that were serious metal bands, you said, your album covers.
Yeah, I mainly worked in the alternative, like hardcore and metal and punk scene. So I think the one that most people probably know is I did the album cover for Gallows, Orchestra of Wolves. I did that alongside an artist called Alex White, and we sort of collaborated on that. And then Gallows became quite a big powerhouse of a band for a good couple of years. So yeah, that was probably where I think most people know me from.
Okie doke. And then the show posters that we know. Who was your first band?
Poster? I don't know what the first one I did was. Actually, the first one I properly did was probably Soundgarden. And that's like the giant octopus, the really long poster. Oh, you came back.
I have superpowers.
Can I just say what he did? He reversed the camera. So carry on.
But I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it.
Yeah, I think the first poster I did for bands, like in this sort of my recent run of stuff, was I think it was Soundgarden, and that was a giant octopus, really long piece. And then I also did a couple for Biffy Clyro. So I think they were sort of like me moving into the realm of gig posters. And I hadn't. It's weird because I sort of stopped doing anything music based. I did all those album covers. Then I moved into pop culture and didn't do any music stuff. And now I'm sort of back to doing music stuff. So it's kind of a nice sort of cyclical thing there.
Yeah, and that you mentioned that Soundgarden one, and we sort of put it in the collage, and the amount of comments and what have you that came privately were like, oh my God, that poster.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a nice piece to do, actually, because it was, Soundgarden, obviously, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, they were kind of, actually, well, I mean, maybe it was a little bit after, actually, but either way, they were a big band, and they, along with some of the other sort of bands around that era, they had quite an impact on me. So
and that was probably your first one, you think?
I think it was either that one or it was Biffy Clyro for, I think it was Barrowlands. I think I can't remember, to be honest.
And then, so you're saying, Soundgarden was part of your musical life, as it were.
Of course, yeah.
And then you're asked to do the poster. That must have been pretty damn exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll be honest. I was and still am more of a metal guy, but they are still in that category. They're still the alternative, sort of slightly harder edge stuff, and they're also just a great band.
Yeah.
So, I'm not exactly a sort of elitist person who only listens to one very strict music style, but that was the sort of stuff I mainly liked. But it's being able to do something for any of those sort of higher tier bands always it's always pretty special. Yeah, definitely.
And so I'm just going to seeing comments come up and that. And you're saying you're sort of more of a metal guy.
Yeah, definitely.
So of your, of the bands that you love in that genre, have you had a chance to do stuff for them particularly? Or
Yeah. I've been able to do, there's the big four, or there's the big five actually. But there's Metallica, there's Iron Maiden, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, and so far I've done Iron Maiden, Metallica, and I'd like to do the others. I think Megadeth would be really good. I haven't seen many Megadeth posters. I don't know if they're really sort of on the bandwagon as much as the other bands are, but it's been like Metallica, for example. It's been amazing the last few years. They've really got behind the idea of the gig poster, essentially. And pretty much every run of shows they do, they've had like quite a lot of posters, and really amazing posters as well.
Yeah.
And that's just awesome to see them finally get behind that. Because I know for a while they were quite like precious about what promoted them as a band. And I think eventually they just went, let's just have fun, And it's great. It's amazing to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's another one of those ones where comments are, have been about your Metallica, and they're just like, that is just one of the great Metallica.
That's really nice. It's nice to hear that. Like, I think when you're drawing something like that, you're not really, I don't know, with that was my first thing that I did for Metallica. And it's a tough one because it's like, I didn't know what I was going to do to sort of capture Metallica. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't have a necessary like logo, not logo, sorry, an icon or a mascot. Like they don't have an Eddie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's quite with most of that stuff. It's more about like looking at the lyrics actually and taking what you can from those to try and make something somewhat iconic. But that was I do actually really love that poster. That's one of the. It's rare but that's one where I genuinely afterwards just go, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, you know.
You say it's rare to come up with that, you know,
to be happy afterwards with the piece. Like nearly always, you sort of go, I could have done something better there, you know.
So out of all the ones you've done, then, which is the one where you can kind of give yourself the least? Oh, I could have done more.
Well, I think it's the Metallica one. Yeah. I think it's that one. Yeah. Because there was something about that pose of like him just coming out of the top of it, and I spent quite a lot of time on that one. A little bit more extra, a little bit to get all the extra details in there. Yeah.
So okay, so I mean, like also seeing Sue is mentioning the solo bridges, you know, Eddie's bridges.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I'll come on to a personal story about those in a minute, but you know, I mean, I see that Hammersmith as something just what could be missing, you know, or almost, and you know, you're sort of going, oh, there was something.
Well, do you know what it is? It's more, for me, it's like I'm looking at it going, I could have drawn this aspect better, or I could have put these details in here better, or maybe I didn't spend long enough on a certain piece of it. I mean, I think you'll find most artists look at their work and do that. I think it's quite rare for anyone in the artistic or design field to sort of go, I'm finished. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that poster was quite a immediate idea. Like I found out what we were doing for the show, and I think I just sort of went. The first thing I normally do is look at the venue and look at what's around the venue, and immediately the bridge just became sort of like the thing. You know, I was like, well, that's so iconic, and it's also quite a sort of British looking thing. Do you know what I mean? It feels like London, and so I just sort of thought, that's it. That's, you know, and it's also putting in what I like to do, which is always sort of try and tell a story like a person going on an adventure or something. And then of course that then evolved into the other two posters.
So. Yeah, and I mean, and I love it. And my, you know, I mentioned I have a little story about that particular poster myself. Is my, you know, a friend of mine is a huge collector. I only get posters from shows I went to, you know, and I was at, and we were going to both shows and had an Airbnb not far from Hammersmith, and we see each other really only at Pearl Jam shows or Eddie shows, and we've been up until the small hours chatting away and this, that, and the other, and then at some ridiculous hour, he appears in my room with a cup of coffee and says, you got to get up, I'm like, no, boys, 8 o'clock in the morning, I brought you coffee. I'm like, I know, but like, geez, man, can't we sleep? The show's not. He says, yeah, but look at this, and there was your poster on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, we've got to get there now. We've got to get. I'm saying, Paul, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, no, I've got to. We've got to go. And he just about got. Yeah, it was a good cup of coffee.
But he did get the poster then.
He got the poster. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. But I mean, he's a huge collector, and it was some people, you know, we know some people collect and they'll collect anything of every band, you know, or everything of the band X, whichever one it is. But that one was, you know, to him as a collector was beyond just one I want to have in my collection. That was special. And to me, yeah, no, I saw it and I'm like, wow, yeah, definitely.
It's always nice to hear, you know. And it is insane how how much it's become for a lot of people about the poster collecting, you know. I think I don't really know when that started to happen as much, but I have a feeling it's sort of like as the need for physical media like CDs and stuff declined, I think people wanting stuff like posters, it went up, you know, because it's sort of like people want something they can sort of put up and sort of look at, and I don't know. I just think that it's been such a huge upsurge in it in the last few years.
Yeah, and actually, you bring up a really good point because I will tend to get most of my music through iTunes, unless it's a particular band I love and I want the hard copy.
Yeah.
And I haven't bought vinyl because I don't have a player. It's been and I remember being young and those vinyls was something. The cover, the artwork, the liner notes, everything was really special.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that actually makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it is just sad that normally when if I work on an album cover these days, I tend to just see it online or on Spotify. I don't, I will get a physical copy if it exists, but that's not how you normally see it. It's not the same as when I would take out my Discman and a bunch of CDs and go to the studio when I was at university, and they would be my favorite albums to open, and look at the liner notes and look at the booklet and everything. So it is sad, but it does still exist for a lot of bands with vinyl. I think more than CDs probably.
Yeah, and because you can read the liner notes or whatever in a CD, and it's just not the same.
No, it's not.
It's just not the same. Will we see more Dan Mumford in PJ World? Is a question that's just been asked.
It's a good question, and I hope you do.
Well,
that's it. Yeah,
I can guarantee you that there's an awful lot of people who, like you said, you hope you do, who I know would love to see more of your work.
Pearl Jam and Eddie have been great to work with, and Chris Tisa, who sort of puts some of that stuff together. They've just always been very wonderful to work with, very nice, and just quite open to lots of really cool ideas. So yeah, always a blast doing it. So,
do you have because you've done both, but the Eddies, the Bridges, other stuff, Pearl Jam. Do you have a favorite?
Not particularly. I think I see them as kind of one body of work anyway. I think with the solo stuff for Eddie, we did the 3 Bridges and then we did the Wembley one, which was the landscape. I think if I were to do any more Eddie ones, I'd probably continue to do like Eddie walking towards the venue or something. It just kind of feels like a little narrative, and then you can look at them all together. The Bridges thing was really fun because it was very much like he was just constantly on tour, and it was subtle, but within the actual posters, his hair gets longer, and I think his case that he has with him and his guitar case gets a little bit more battered and bruised, but yeah, they're fun. And the Pearl Jam side of things, it's just a bit more. I think that's where I've gone a bit more wild, if you will. It's a bit more out there, whereas the Eddie ones are more like real life, if you will.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're saying. And I'm just saying a comment, which actually I really like from the fact you're saying it was one of your very first. It says Prince, they're calling themselves. Loves your work, and their favourite piece is the Biffy print from a while back.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I did 2. There was I can't remember which is which, to be honest, but there was one that was an anniversary poster for one of their albums, and that was a lady wrapped in like flags, and that was a really fun one because it's really nice and smooth, quite unlike most things I do actually. And then the other one was like a tree with bones hanging off of it.
That's
so. Oh, there you go. The tree.
Just said it was the tree. Yeah.
No, they were good to work with.
And Sue also asked, do you get feedback directly from the band while you're working?
From any of the band? Well, in general, it's a sort of a mixture of management and band. I think at the end of the day, it's representing the band, and I would, they've got to say yes.
Yeah.
That's it, really. But no, a lot of the time, it's really nice, especially with gig posters, because the bands, all the bands I've worked with, they generally are very open. Like it's very loose. It's very much, there might be a request like, can you include this aspect of this city? Or can you include something to do with this album on this tour cycle? But generally, it's been a case of like, here's the idea we've maybe got, you go do what you want to do with it. And it's really fun because, and that's the best way it should be as well, because normally that means the artist creating the poster is going to come up with the best idea on their own, as opposed to like if they're really railroading you into an idea. And I think that's why you get so many crazy gig posters, you know, like just such weird stuff sometimes. It's so fun to see what people come up with. Like, because I'm a fan of following along with all the other artists doing stuff as well. And sometimes you'll see a poster and just be like, how the hell did they come up with that? It's so weird, but it's also perfect, you know?
Yeah, and I hear that, you know, from artists that, you know, they obviously look at other artists and enjoy other artists and what have you, and they kind of like, I don't know, oh, I wish I knew I could do that, and how do they do that? And, you know, and everyone has their own unique style, otherwise it would be very boring, you know.
Of course.
Everyone went, right, well, he's the man, I'm going to follow him, and then all of a sudden every poster's exactly the same, you know.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing actually as well with a lot of the artists doing gig posters is they have a sort of niche in the way they do things, and it's really nice because I feel like all the other artists doing stuff, they sort of we're just sort of nicely going along with each other, you know. And it means when you get a tour and there's like 10 posters or something, they all sort of complement each other in their own way. It's just nice. It's nice to see. Yeah.
There's some cool questions coming up. Is like, who's your favorite artist? And that guy you mentioned about your Biffy one said he'd love to see you do a Tool poster.
Who's my favorite artist?
That's a tough one.
It's a big question, and I'll be honest, I don't think I have one particular artist that I always go back to and go, they're amazing. That's the one for me, you know. When I was younger, it was Alphonse Mucha. Like, I thought his stuff was sort of, the way he did stuff really spoke to me. But nowadays, if I were to choose a modern artist, maybe someone like James Jean, like his works, just, he's sort of like on another level, just beautiful work. And what was the other question was?
The guy who mentioned the tree, the Biffy tree, says he would love to see you do a Tool poster.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd love to do a Tool poster. You know, they're a band that, you know, they're such a mystery anyway. And they sort of, they put an album out. I think obviously they just put an album out, but before that, the last album was when I was at school. Like, it was a long time ago. And I remember that album coming out and being, I think I was probably like was it 18 years ago? It can't be that long ago. Maybe I'm getting confused. Either way.
It was certainly a while ago. And you're also telling me there, without, not deliberately, that you're a lot younger than me.
No, but I remember when Tool put out like an album and I was at school and I was like, oh, this band's pretty cool. And I got into it. And then Tool just kind of disappeared for ages. And now that they're like back in, I mean, obviously the coronavirus situation sort of stopped them doing any shows, but I hope that doesn't mean it's just like they've stopped again. I hope they do keep playing shows in support of that album they put out, because I would adore to do a Tool poster. You know, they're right up my street. They're an amazing band, and the amount of weird stuff you could get away with drawing for a Tool poster would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of the Tool posters, and we've been lucky enough to have a few donated. And yeah, you used the word weird. There is some weird and wonderful stuff. Yeah. There's I've got 13 years or 14 years ago.
Okay, so it was a long time ago. All right,
that's not me. That's what people are commenting.
I was in, I think, my first year of university. There you go. So but I remember it being like, I sort of listened to it while I was working. I just got this really vivid memory of it.
And is there a band that you haven't done yet that you would love to come knocking?
Actually, I think we mentioned it earlier. Megadeth, that'd be a good one.
That would be.
They're just sort of, you know, they're like, for ages they were sort of looked at as the younger, not younger, but the lesser Metallica. And in reality, like, they've just shredded for the last 30 years or so. They've just been amazing. Every album they put out has got some really good songs on it. And it doesn't really change. It's kind of the same thing every time, but it's really good, and it continues to be really good. So yeah, I'd quite like to do a poster for them if they did posters. I don't know that they do. I haven't seen any really.
Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, I'm not, you know, overly familiar.
Yeah.
So no, I can't think.
No, I can't think they have.
No,
it's a shame.
And the tool thing, and again, I'm not a tool pro, but I heard that once upon a time it was just one of the band members. Is it Alex? He was the only one who did any of the artwork at all, any of the posters. But this last,
okay.
but now they brought in other artists. So
okay, all right.
Yeah. So
yeah, well, I think that's what I think you're seeing that with a lot of the older bands. The sort of
somebody's just correct.
Okay. Yeah, they've like let the creative reins go a bit, and I think they're just sort of like we've been holding on to this stuff for so long now. Maybe just let our fans have fun with it.
Actually, someone mentioned your Fish posters, and I mean, I'm not overly familiar with Fish as a band itself, but I mean, I looked at some of your Fish posters are really quite incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, like Fish are a strange band in that it actually in like the UK and I think Europe, I don't know that they're that well known really.
Yeah.
But in America, they're like huge. So, when I was originally asked to do a Fish poster, probably like 5 or 6 years ago now, I wasn't really familiar with the band. And obviously now I know how much of a cultural impact they've had as a band. And they're a wonderful band to work with as well. Like, again, very, very open to lots of ideas and just sort of, a very nice fan base as well. Yeah.
I'm listening, but also looking at looking at questions. How long does it take to create a poster, and specifically like the Ed ones that you did?
I mean, it's a tough question. Like every piece is a little bit different. But generally for me, I'll sketch an idea out in half a day, sort of see what the band think of that. If you get the go ahead, then I just get cracking, and 3-4 days normally. I mean, that's me working pretty long days, but I like to just do it in one big chunk and get it done. I don't like to like sort of whittle away at it. I really focus on it and get in there. And but some are longer, some are quicker. It really depends.
I mean, I'm not an artist, and to hear you say, yeah, I put a sketch together in half a day and get it ready, I'm like, oh, really? You can? People are that good. people are that good, and that's good to me. I'm thinking even just the sketch. As I said, I don't know. It's not my job, but I'm thinking just to get the sketch together and ready would take a day, 2, 3 to kind of. But obviously, I guess you have the idea comes to you, and then you're obviously this is what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, and a lot of the time the idea comes to me and I've got it in my head. Like I'm not necessarily, I'm never really sitting with a blank canvas thinking, what am I going to do? I've probably already decided what I'm going to do. It's now about how do I execute that idea and how do I put that down on the page in front of me. And I'll even sort of go through ideas and reject ideas before I've got to that stage. Do you know what I mean? So it's very much like I'm already like 50% ahead just by thinking about it normally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Prince, this guy Prince, he's asked, do you have a flat file favorite that you look back on and think you would have changed stuff after the fact?
I don't know that I do. I think a lot of the time I'm pretty good at closing the book on something once it's done. And actually, it's quite nice to look back at posters and go, that came out better than I remember, actually. And the other thing is, a lot of the time, 99% of the time, I'm looking at the piece on the screen. The physical thing is like the last percent when it turns up and I have my copies of the print. And then I sell them and put them in a drawer. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so actually, whenever I look at the print and it's out, it's bigger than I've been looking at it. And nearly always I just go, oh, that looks quite good. Like it's quite nice seeing something bigger, you know. So that, which is also why if I ever do 24 by 36 inch posters, which is very rare, but when I do, they just look huge, and just like, why would it? What's anyone going to do with a poster that big? You know, which is why most of the stuff I do is 1824.
Love your work with Maiden. I got the Book of Souls Metal Hammer cover tattooed.
Oh wow, good, nice one. Yeah, that was a fun piece I did. That was I've worked with Metal Hammer quite a bit on like the cover mounted CDs. Probably did around 25, 30 of them. And I've done just the one cover, and that was the Iron Maiden one. That was really cool. Like that was just another nice moment where I got to work with Eddie, who's such like an iconic character. It was really good.
And it's tattooed.
That's amazing. It's always good to see. I think he might have shared that with me.
That must be cool. That must be cool. Eric,
I have a feeling he might have shared that with me before. Yeah.
Okay. Eric from West Palm Beach, Florida. Don't come back. Does Disney seek you out, or do you send ideas to them? For example, Marvel movies, Star Wars movies.
Generally, that sort of stuff's working with galleries or license holders. It's not really directly with Disney. So, like, you got to sort of think about. There's lots of other people who go out there to reach out to creatives, and yeah, I've just been really lucky that some of them have asked me to do some fun work. And obviously, the Star Wars stuff is like the biggest thing I got to do. That was great.
That's cool. That's cool. And I'm enjoying the comments, and like, when you know, Dan is 100% one of my favorite artists out there at the moment. And I saw one of his talks last year.
Last year?
So we'll give auto typing. We'll say it was a auto correct went wrong. And that man is just amazing.
Oh, it's very nice to hear. Thank you very much. You know, I've done quite a few talks in the past few years, some of which are on my website if you guys want to check them out. And you know, I always like to talk about my experiences and like my method and stuff, because you know, hopefully that's going to help someone to pick up a pen and do something. And you know, I hope that it does inspire people to create somehow.
As long as they don't totally rip you off.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
Someone's doing some really nice PR for Given to Live. Thank you very much. Did you know that we always create posters for the people we take to shows?
So did I know that?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, one of the things we do and the way we do it is it's not simply there's a couple of tickets. You know, it's very much to make that person, whatever they've gone through, feel. And you know, we have taken, you know, people with physical injuries, you know, depression, post-suicide, domestic abuse, and it's, you know, I don't like using the word slogan, but I do. It's like it's because you matter, and we'll have a local artist create their own unique individual one-off show poster.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's if you go to our website, I do believe they're on there somewhere, you know, under which.
Okay. Yeah.
And then not only if they mention that we do that, the PR very kindly have said, would you maybe consider making one day for us, for one of our guests?
Yeah, I mean, just get in contact. Yeah,
that's really kind. That is really kind. But yeah, and that's kind of, again, it's that thing of people wanting that hard copy, and and there's always, when we do it, it's like you said about Ed's bridge. It's like, okay, what speaks to me about place X? Okay, it's Hammersmith, that bridge, and it's London, it's this, that, and the other. And when I speak to the artist, it'll be something about that person, their life, whether it's a lyric out of the song that got them through this situation or whatever. There's just a little nuance that it's there. It's like, for instance, we took a young fella with autism to see the band Ghost, and his favorite song was Rats. So it was a sort of post-apocalyptic scene that the person came up with, but with plenty of rats in there for him,
That's
and
amazing.
it's and it's kind of, it's definitely, Ghost is there, but actually his name was Stephen. It's like it's his poster. It's Stephen is the, it's not Ghost. It's Stephen, and
that's awesome.
Your art is used as Cody's iPhone wallpaper.
Good.
So there you go.
Good. That's good to hear.
And your lighting in your art looks awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, lighting's a lot. That's something I focus on quite a bit in what I do. It's all about shadow and light, pretty much. There's always a bright light source somewhere in the picture.
Do you consider to put out sold out posters like The Bridge to be reprinted and put on sale again as AP Volume 2? Now, I'm gonna guess, and the answer is that you're not even allowed to.
No, you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be up to me. If the band wanted to do something like that, I would be totally up for it. But the thing is, like, and this is something that it always happens with a poster for a band that's super popular. You just get people afterwards saying, hey, can you not just print more? And the problem is, if you just print more, then there's no demand. Do you know what I mean? So you gotta balance these things. And I think it's a shame that not everyone can always have the poster, but there's always next time. And it's just a poster,
Yeah. And actually, I'm just thinking, was it Wembley or one of your Eddie or Pearl Jam posters? You were quite crafty, for want of a better word, of how you put it up to stop the bots getting in.
I was indeed, yeah. I named the poster something like "Buy This." I don't know. It was, there was no reference to Eddie Vedder in the text whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, and I think that actually does help. But with the bots and all that stuff, I don't know, man. There's no real way to know. And also, a lot of the time, it's not bots. It's just thousands upon thousands of people. Like, I think, I had 100 posters for sale, and there was maybe like 3,000-4,000 people trying to access my site. So, a lot of people are going to be unhappy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And like you said, if even if none of those are bots, that's the math just doesn't work. 100
exactly. Yeah.
That really, you'll have 3,000, 4,000 for an Eddie or whatever.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I think you'll find. I think you'll find some of the others probably get more than that. Like, there's such a huge fan base for Eddie and Pearl Jam that you just can't. You can't do anything. You can't keep everyone happy, unfortunately.
Well, unless you produce 3,000.
Yeah, there is that.
And there still would be the other 1,000 who hadn't got.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't just do an open edition. Yeah, but the thing is, I did do a poster once for a band, and it was an open edition, and then they didn't sell that well. So what can you do? You can't win.
have you ever had requests for the sports industry, having predominantly done film and music?
Sports
Dave
industry.
Clayton asks, yeah.
Oh, Dave. Hi, Dave. I know Dave.
Oh.
No, not really. I've done maybe a few bits, like sort of editorial, but nothing specifically for sports. No, actually, I think I have had a few where I've pitched for it, but like the budgets didn't align or something. And I think that's the thing. There's always huge projects that just sort of never go anywhere, and lots of weird stuff that I just can't talk about as well because you've signed NDAs or whatever. But the sports industry is not somewhere that I've ever been able to do anything like properly. It'd be cool to move into it at some point though. Like, I'm very open to doing all different types of things. This sort of variety is good,
Which actually is that's actually just reminded me of a question, which I'll come to in a second. I mean, which if someone sort of said, yeah, we want you to do a sport, would there be a sport specifically you'd want to do if it was like, right, you can only do one?
Not particularly, because I'm not that interested in sports as a person. But it's to me, it would be more just like a different challenge, I'm sort of at this point now with things like movie posters where I love doing it because I absolutely adore film. Like after art, film is like, film and music are like I consume that stuff a lot. But I can kind of do that stuff without thinking too much now. And sport, actually, it'd be a completely different challenge. I wouldn't know how to tackle it. So any type of sport, it'd be very interesting to do. Yeah.
Actually, and what just made me chuckle because a friend of mine, and I love sport, and I actually love baseball, and I'm in a Pearl Jam fantasy baseball league, and the guy who runs it says, "You've got to ask Dan if he'll join the league." And I'm thinking, I wonder how much Dan's into baseball for a start.
I wouldn't even know where to start with it. Not a clue.
Yeah.
No.
And I know, and as much as it is a fun question, I'm also aware that part of the reason is you have to put up a poster to join the league, and then the winner gets X amount, Y amount, and so there might have been a little bit of a vested interest.
Makes sense,
as well. Yeah. First of all, amazing work. A question: have you ever thought about making a Nirvana Kurt Cobain poster in the style of the Eddie Vedder one you did? It would be legendary.
No, I haven't actually. I did like Nirvana a lot, as many people did, but it's not something that's come up. And if I was asked to do something to do with Nirvana, I would. Of course, I would. It'd be great to do, but no, it's not something that I've really considered. No.
And I mean, I'm as a layman, as it were, in this world. Could you just produce a Nirvana or Kurt Cobain poster, or do you have to go through certain channels to get permission?
You could, and the thing is, it wouldn't be smart to do it, especially not like a fully branded sort of Nirvana thing. I don't think anyone would mind if you did like Kurt Cobain portraits or something, but you never know, really. At the end of the day, if it's anything big like that, it's always smart to be doing it through the proper channels.
Yeah.
And there will be a brand or a company or a gallery out there that holds the rights, I imagine, to producing like Nirvana based artwork. But to be honest, I haven't seen any sort of like art tribute stuff to them. Who knows? I imagine there's some sort of legal battle going on somewhere with them. I think there has been for a while.
Yeah, not something I was aware of, but yeah, there's seems to be legal battles in the music industry one way or another somewhere along the road.
Nearly always when a band member has passed away, there's someone somewhere holding something up. So I don't know.
Have you? And this is just totally because they will were sort of one of my favorite bands when I was younger. Have you ever done anything for the Black Crows?
No, I haven't actually. No, no. No, that's not a band that really crops up often for stuff. I thought you were going to say Black Sabbath, and I have done one for Black Sabbath, but not Black Crows.
Are you? I haven't seen the Sabbath one you did.
Yeah, it was just one poster. It was like it was just based off Paranoid. So it was like sort of a reimagining of the album cover. And that was quite a few years ago now. Yeah, it was just like an art print. It wasn't for anything in particular.
What's your favorite Star Wars character? Cody wants to know.
I'll just say Darth Vader. You know, I don't really have a favorite, to be honest. I enjoy the worlds of Star Wars and everything that's in them. But you know, Darth's pretty good. You know, just the menace of him. Actually, no, maybe Darth Maul. Any of the Darths. I like all the Darths. They're great.
Anything with Darth in.
Yeah.
That covers it. That covers it. So, Megadeth and Tool would be really cool posters for you to add to your inventory.
Definitely. Yeah.
Very bizarre. And I know it's going way off track. A really good friend. My brother's 3.5 years younger, so when he was around 20-ish, a really good friend of his was Dave Mustaine's daughter's au pair.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I don't think they're in contact, so I can't like sort of send you back down that, you know, give you a little in that way. But yeah,
it's a good start.
it's just, yeah. There's a lot. You've worked on a lot of, and I'm aware that we're running out. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes before Instagram does its at an hour. You've worked on a lot of movie IP, but is there anything you'd still like to tackle?
That's Doley. Hi, Doley. Doley is an amazing artist. Everyone should check out.
Okay, I will.
So movie IP. Blah blah blah. What I'd like to tackle. Do you know what? I'd really like to do more in the video game world, because as a kid, I was obsessed with video games. Still love video games now when I've got time for them. So I would kind of really like to do something in that realm. I don't really know how, but you know, I've done like one alternative video game cover, and in the end, it didn't get used. It was like used online only in the end, so that was a shame. But that was fun to do. So that's a realm I'd probably quite like to explore.
Say the video games. It's kind of one of my sort of adolescent within the adult dreams is to have my own pinball machine at home. But like the old school, the more old school one, not the one that you turn on and you've got 10 million points before you've even looked at it, you know, where you really had to work hard to get to, like, and you say, do you have video games, the old school type?
Do I have any?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I think in the last like few years, you've seen quite a sort of retro renaissance actually, where a lot of these old classics are coming back, like in these sort of HD remasters and stuff. And I always love when things from my past are like revisited now. That's always really nice to see, because you know, I think sort of the Mega Drive or Genesis, if you're in America, like that era, and the Super Nintendo, like that era of games, they sort of stick in your heart, and the memories are there forever. So always nice when that stuff comes back round now.
Yeah. So see, I'm older than you because I remember when sort of Space Invaders and Asteroids and things like that came out, you know. And
don't worry, they've been revisited. There's sort of weird 3D versions of Space Invaders now they're awful, but it's a shame.
There's actually a bar. I've not been in it because I don't drink and what have you. But there's a bar in Bristol that has a lot of the old school games. You know, Asteroids and what have you, in the real old-fashioned style, not some new mocked-up version, which is very well, I don't know if the games are that popular, but it's always busy. So
yeah, there's a couple of bars like that in London actually, and they're really fun to go to because it's like you can just sort of sit anywhere and get quarters and stuff and play arcade machines. And it's weird because like the arcade as a concept died completely.
yeah.
And now it's more of a sort of, it's weird because the arcade now has to be part of a bar or something where everyone's getting drunk and everyone's going, oh, we can play on these old arcades. Which is fine. Like, I love it, but it's just funny. Like the arcade would have been something that was for kids. Nowadays, the arcade's not for kids. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and I used to remember getting paid on a Friday, and I'm from London originally, and not in Fulham, and it was like I knew where my favorite pinball machine was, and I'd go with, you know, enough money for I drank in those days, and it was like, yeah, and as soon as the person was off the pinball machine, that was me. I was in there for the night because I just absolutely loved it. Yeah, that was,
yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, and like you said, there are no, you know, they don't really exist. Like you said, no arcades.
No, they don't make
nothing.
money. So
No. Right, stories were captivating. That's not a bad little accolade.
Is he saying our stories we've been talking about? I think maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway,
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope it's not just some book he's been reading and kind of going, yeah, that was awesome. And yeah, so before we get cut off and what have you, I just want to say thank you so much, Dan. You know,
yeah, no problem at all.
For this conversation, and obviously for your support in, well, looking at the time, there's just enough time. How did you find your art style? Cody wants to know. There's just enough time.
Very quickly, just by drawing. there's I didn't go looking for it. It just sort of found me in a really weird sort of way. You know, I just drew in the way that felt natural to me, and that then became what I do. You know.
Yeah. Became you and your style and how you do it.
Yeah.
Which is, and you know, it's like whether it's the Avengers or it's Iron Maiden, it's definitely got Dan Mumford written all over it as the saying.
Yeah, I like to think it's obvious when it's me, you know.
Yeah, it is, and so having answered that one, thanks for an interesting visit. Still hunting down my Camden fish.
One day.
Who knows what'll happen there? Again, thank you so much. Thank you, you know, for supporting Given to Live, you know, over
no problem at all.
The time we have, and we'll be in touch again, I know. And
all right.
And like I said, as a Pearl Jam fan, on top of everything else, and of your work, this has been, as much as it's been fun to talk to you, it's been doubly fun. And like I said to you when we actually connected in our sort of pre-chat, and I was just a bit like, oh, I'm talking to Dan Mumford. Oh God, well, how do I do that? Yeah.
Well, you know, just a guy sitting in a room.
Yeah, that's two of us. Dan, thank you so much, and really appreciate it. And
no problem at all.
I'll get this recorded and send it over to you if you want to use it. By all
means,
yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Take it easy, and thank you so much for your time. Thanks. Have a great evening, and stay safe and well.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Cheers, Dan.